It's so unfair that you get to sit like front facing and I can't.
Did you check my mic? What do you mean front face? Why can't you?
You could, because like I'm broader than you are. Well, your hips are broader than mine, but like I'm
Your shoulders are broad.
much.
Fat ass, girl.
That's a good thing in today's
birthing
society.
hips.
Yeah, I don't, and I'm okay with that.
God, yeah, you guys wiggle a fucking ton. I'm gonna have to
We're
fix that.
girls. We're fucking girls. Of course we wiggle. We wiggle and waggle.
You're like, do you not know what girls do, man? Oh, come on.
He's gonna talk in your mic.
Okay, I'll talk into my
Talk about how
mic.
girls wiggle.
Talk about how girls wiggle. Well, I hope they don't wiggle too much. You know, like
Okay, those are good levels.
You mean jiggle? Jiggle and wiggle are
Jiggle.
totally different.
don't jiggle or
Alright,
wiggle.
bitches, are you ready?
Oh my god, I'm so ready.
Let's do it.
Oh my god.
You're running through the darkness. You're running through the darkness. Running through the darkness.
Good evening.
Hello.
Welcome to Between the Covers podcast. I'm Nyx,
And I'm Ophelia.
and we're your hostesses.
Are you gonna do that, boys?
Sometimes. Tonight is the conclusion of our Fan Fiction Extravaganza. And there are 3 of them because all of the best things in life come in trilogies, like Lord of the Rings.
Or between the covers podcast.
Shut up, Scorch. Actually, I really can't think of anything else that I really, really, really love that comes in a trilogy, but Lord of the Rings works because Lord of the Rings is the best. And
I agree.
There are more than 3 Star Wars movies.
But there's several trilogies.
There's a trilogy of trilogies. All right. Anyway, so tonight we haven't picked a theme for our fan fictions. We've kind of just run wild. Stop fucking yawning already,
Sorry,
Ophelia.
I was trying to remember. Oh, I just wanted to say, Nyx, I'm glad you shaved.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was getting a little too much. It's still summer, kind of. It was hot. I was just trying out a new look.
Scorch, you need to settle down.
Yeah, Scorch, if you're not going to be on mic, you shouldn't talk. The audio listeners really wouldn't appreciate it.
Have we had enough from the peanut gallery? All right, continue, Nyx.
So as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, we didn't pick a theme for tonight's fan fictions. We kind of just picked the ones that we were interested in reading. So as a result, we have quite a mishmash of different genres. So, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? What's going on?
I'll go first.
Okay, so tell us what universe your fan fiction takes place in.
All right, my first one is a Game of Thrones fan fiction.
Ooh, juicy.
So it's called The Bird and the Hound.
The Bird and the Hound?
Yes.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Is there a disclaimer?
No.
Really?
No warning whatsoever.
Ooh, okay. We're going to jump right in then.
Yep, and I haven't read much of it, so I'm not sure what...
You shouldn't have read any of it.
Okay, well, I had to see how long it was.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
All right. I guess I'll begin.
Please do.
Sorry, I keep shaking the camera.
Yeah, Scorch is mad at us because we keep bumping into the table and shaking the camera. Just pretend like we're streaming live from California.
Well, the audio listeners, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no. Well, something disparaging about audio listeners. I don't know.
The Hound may have came and announced he was leaving, but Sansa refused, and he stayed put. The morning after Blackwater arrived, and the city was a mess. Okay.
That's how it starts?
Yes.
All right. Then get off to a good start.
Sansa woke in the morn to see Shay fluttering about it at the table, laying down food. Is my lady all right? She asked. I hear the king's dog gave you a fright. Do not fret. The Lannisters have let him off, saying he was too drunk to think straight. I can't see the screen.
I have some ones that don't have any lenses if you want the aesthetic.
I'll put him on for your story.
Okay.
Is my Oh. I read that part already. So we're off to a great start here, guys. I'm sorry. Sansa gave a huge sigh of relief and threw back the bedclothes in order to ready herself for the day. She had finished breaking her fast as there was a knock on the door of her chambers. Enter, she called out. The door opened to reveal the imp. My lady, he said, the king has ordered your presence in the throne room immediately. I am simply here to escort you there. Oh, thank you, my lord, she stuttered. Please, Sansa, how many times have I told you? Please call me Tyrion, he said. They arrived at the throne room to find Lady Marjorie Tyrell being betrothed to Joffrey. Sansa stopped and stared at the sense before her.
It's a sense?
This is exactly...
Oh my goodness.
Scence. The sense before her. The king saw her from below and beckoned her down. She took her place before him. Well, Lady Sansa, you are the child of a traitor, which means I no longer have to marry you. You can see that Lady Marjorie is more than ready to bear children for me. What say you, Joffrey said.
She has childbearing hips.
I think that she shall bring you many great heirs, your grace. I am thinking now, what shall happen to myself now that I am no longer betrothed to anyone, she questioned. Ah, I have thought of that too, he laughed. Seeing as though you are the daughter of a traitor, I no longer have use for you. I have decided to wed you off. Sansa raised her glance to meet the king's stare. I have decided to marry you to the Hound. With that, the entire hall fell into silence. Sansa looked up to see her betrothed grasping the hilt of his longsword and glancing around the room in panic.
That's definitely foreshadowing.
Yo, your grace, the dog began.
Yo?
I mean...
It says yo?
Sorry.
Yo,
No,
grace.
it's another stutter. He's going, yeah, your grace, like that, but it's...
Okay. Oh, like yo,
like,
your
yeah,
grace.
your grace,
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yo, your grace. The dog began.
Yo, what up, my grace?
I can't. I mean, I can. It's just what dog? The king interrupted. She is too higher stature for me, my grace.
What?
This is how it's written. I'm not stuttering.
No, we read them how they're written.
Yeah. Marrying her would bring disgrace upon the Stark house. Do I look like I care about her house dog? I am wedding her to you for her own punishment. The boy king screamed. What say you, traitor? Are you going to enjoy being my dog's bitch? She might manage to knock some manners into you, hound. I have already decided to have you married on the morrow. Now, Sir Meryn, teach the lady what happens to the daughters of traitors. Meryn came down the steps toward Sansa. The king called out, Leave her face. I like her pretty. She may not be mine anymore, but I'm sure the dog will prefer her that way. Sir Meryn's fist came into contact with her stomach, knocking the wind out of her. He then drew his sword and hilt to the back of her knees with the flat side, causing her to fall. The lady is overdressed. Unburden her, Joffrey called out. Sir Meryn pulled out his dagger to rip the back of her dress when the hound called out, Stop! He ran down the steps toward her. He drew his long sword and held it at the other knight's neck. I am to wed her, not you. Only I should see what she is like underneath, after all. The king did say I'm the only one to marry her. He growled loud enough for the entire hall and king to hear. So be it, dog. Take her away and prepare her for tomorrow as you see fit. The hound nodded at Joffrey and held out his hand for Sansa. She eagerly took it and he pulled her to her feet. Her led her out of the hall and down the twisting corridors, back to the chambers. He opened the door and lead her to a small table inside.
Oh my god.
Her signaled for her to sit, but Sansa turned to stare at his face. Are you still afraid of me, little bird? He rasped. She shook her head. Then look at me and tell me you're not. She stood up straight and looked into his eyes. I am no longer afraid of you, Sandor Clegane. Hearing his name, the rage from behind his eyes subsided. I know you don't want to marry me. The little shit is only doing this to punish you. I may be a man with needs, but I will not hurt you, little bird. I shall not let anyone else lay a finger on you. To Sandor's surprise, she fell into his chest as silent tears ran down her cheeks. He didn't know how to comfort her, so she so awkwardly wrapped his arms around her tiny frame. She fits there perfectly.
Seems like pretty standard for comforting, honestly.
She fits there perfectly. Last night's I scared her to death, and she ruffled her feathers. Now she stands in my arms, trusting me, bloody hells. Sandor, she squeaked. Sandor, she squeaked. Yes, Sansa, he rasped. Husked.
Wait, you should say, like, yes, Sansa.
Yes, Sansa. Okay, I'll do voice. She looked up into his gray eyes, her tully blues boring into him. You are the only one who I can trust, she said. You saved me the day those peasants almost raped me. You may be stern, but you are the only friend I have since coming to the city. His own eyes filled with tears, but he didn't let the fall. Just tightened his grip around her waist. I will keep you safe, don't you fret, he whispered.
Wait, hold on. Is there any sex in this?
I don't know, you wouldn't let me read ahead. He brought a hand up to her cheek, and to his surprise, she moved both of hers to cup his cheeks. She stood up on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. It was a short kiss. Sandor pulled back in shock as she said, Sandor, please, we can make this work. I truly mean it when I say I love you. She smiled up at him as one tear rolled down his burnt cheek.
That was sudden.
He bent down and pulled her against him. This time there was no hesitation. He ran his tongue over her bottom lip and she opened her mouth to him. There are few people I have kissed. Wenches do not need kisses. They are paid with coins. She pulled her head back to look at him. The meeting in the throne room had lasted hours and the sky was beginning to darken. He lifted her up in his arms and carried her to bed. He unclasped her light cloak and laid her under the sheets. Make yourself look pretty for tomorrow. We shall say our vows tomorrow and join in a feast the king is holding for us. I shall ban a bedding ceremony, and we will only consummate this marriage when you allow me to. Guess not. He bent down to kiss her on the forehead and whispered, I promise I will keep you safe, little bird. A dog will die for you, but never lie to you. He stood up and made his way towards the door. You are no dog to me, she whispered back. He opened the door and slipped out, closing it quietly behind him. The end.
The end? Are you fucking serious?
You told me not to read.
Did you filter stories by rating M?
This is rating M. It could be for language.
That's some fucking bullshit right there. Come on. Girl. All right, well, so the writing style was completely discombobulated.
I really like grammatical errors because it's
hilarious
it's
to read.
So funny.
I'm actually really excited to read my first fan fiction because I'm absolutely sure it will be rife with grammatical errors.
Great. It's
and
my
also
favorite.
spelling errors, which
Yes.
are also kind of my favorite because they remind me of, I don't know if you remember the epic reading of the epic fan fiction from Half-Life.
Filled every butt of his vagina.
I do. I have seen that.
Oh my god, it's so good. John Freeman ramped off the building. Yeah, that was some good shit. Also, I just want to say before I jump into mine that mine does have a disclaimer, and not only does it have a disclaimer, it has a conversation between the writer and an anime character in the beginning. I don't know how much fanfiction.net fanfiction you've read in your life.
Not much.
Okay. So it wasn't uncommon for fanfiction writers to hold little mock conversations with the characters before the fanfiction actually began.
Like an interview?
Yeah, well, no, not exactly. It's the author is talking and they're ba ba ba, this is the story, and then the character will interject and be oh, but you said na na na, and then the author is wait your turn, whatever, Hiei or whoever the character is. But
So what universe is this?
so I don't know if you guys had the same weird obsession that I did when I was a kid, but I picked an Animorphs fan fiction.
I remember exactly where those books were in my library.
I have all of
And
them.
I was horrified by the covers. I never read one.
You never read
They
an
creep me
Animorphs?
out. The weird horse into human thing.
Dude, Cassie was the best.
It was
Cassie
disturbing.
was super cool. She's the one who morphed into the horse. The black chick. I had a huge crush on Jake, who's the leader of the Animorphs. He was super cute if you were into 90s
I'm sure
dudes.
you did. Oh, 90s.
No, he had the 90s dude's haircut, parted in the middle, it kind of came down to here, and then it was shaved in the back. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was the leader. I've always been attracted to Power Girl. Anyway, yeah, so I picked an Animorphs fan fiction. This one is called Visser 3 Lover. And for those of you who don't know, Visser 3 is the villain of the Animorphs universe. So I can only imagine what this is going to be about. I haven't read any of it. The description posted on fanfiction.net had plenty of spelling errors in it. So I was really excited.
It's going to be great.
So I'm going to start with the disclaimer. And the disclaimer says, this is not for everyone. If you don't read. I don't own Animorphs, even if I am in love with Visser 3. And then Itachi interjects, what about me? You love my... And then the author says, stop. Okay. I'll write a story about you. You know how much I love and respect you. Looks softly at him submissively. Itachi says, I know. I would not want to spank you. Hug her and grab her ass. Itachi, this is for mature readers only. And don't read. Visser 3 Lover, Chapter 1. How many chapters of this are there? I don't want to know. Nisha was walking to the sharing. She joins the sharing to make friends. Nisha has a pretty bad background, and because of it, she and her family had to move to a new town and place. It was nighttime. Her mother, Tracy, left to spend the night at a boyfriend house. Her sisters and brothers were at a friend's house. The only person there was her sister, Tasha. She told her sisters and mother she was going to the sharing tonight to make people full members. Finally, Nisha got to the sharing. In the sharing, she saw a bunch of kids her age she did not know. Finally, a man came and asks all the people to fallow him. That's right, fallow, not follow. I fallow the man to the door that opened a secret tunnel with other people around me. That was just like me new and had no idea what we got ourselves into. As we went down the stairs, I saw a monster. I got scared and saw a ramp. I ran up the ramp. When I got all the way up there, I saw a pool of sludge and the people that were with me. They were being dragged to the water and their heads being pushed under the sludge. I heard their, side note, T-H-E-R-E, screams, their, T-H-E-R-E, cries, the begging and the pleading. No commas, nothing. Just one. This is like shitty Faulkner. As I was leaning over to see more, fell over and landed in the sludge. I swam to the pier and got out of the pool. Some people came up to help me. One of them handed me a brome.
Hand me a brome.
B-R-O-M-E, a brome. And told me to get dry off and go sweep the tunnels. I was scared. I got up, walked down the tunnels, and found a towel and dry off. After I was dry, I saw a kid my age crying. I asked her what was all this, and she gave me answers. I saw a wire that controls everything. I grab a Draken beam that was sat down by a controller, and I snuck up and stole it. S-T-O-L-L. Snuck away, and then I am for the wire. There was an explosion, and I look at the kid and told him good luck. I ran deep into the tunnel and found the place I was supposed to be at, and that was far away from the explosion and pretend to sweep. I heard clops and screams and a thud. Then I heard a creature's voice, almost telepathic. What has happened here? A voice boomed. So why has no one gave chase to the Andalite bandits? I was scared, horrified, so I walked deeper in a tunnel where I hear clopping. Then I turn around to see the Andalite the kid told me about. He was truly scary, and I saw something in his eyes I could not place. And that's the end of the fucking story.
That's the,
the fucking end of the story.
Definitely written by a 9-year-old.
That was horrible.
Maybe we should do like some pre-production, like not like 2 hours before the podcast.
Hey, you're the one who told us not to read the fucking stories.
You are?
I don't recall that at all.
I recall that.
Would you rather we have read the Shrek Hitler romance?
Yes. Oh my god. Well, that's okay. That's
It's
why
only one paragraph.
guys.
I need something with some fucking smut here.
I have a story with smut.
Yeah, my second one has tentacles in it, so.
Ooh, you should go first.
Yep.
Are you guys gonna talk about those at all?
Yeah, let's talk about them. They were fucking horrible. Those people should give up writing forever and probably also jump in a fucking
Or
cremation fire.
Go back to 4th grade. Definitely a child wrote yours. Someone who's a proper age to read Animorphs.
Hey, you know what? That's fair. I read Animorphs when I was in like 2nd grade.
Right.
I mean, I continued to read them because I would like highlight the pages, like the passages that I found really funny. Because K.A. Applegate actually was a really humorous writer.
No, I believe it. One of my all-time favorite books is a young adult book. But it's got illustrations in it, 200 paintings in it. It's really interesting.
Is it The Calera by Anne McCaffrey?
No, it's The Aberrat by Clive Barker.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And even if you go back and read it as an adult, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, I heard that about The Giver, too.
I don't know. That's been a long time since I read that one.
Yeah. Anyway, we're totally not talking
These
about
books
romance
are
novels.
way too good to be talking about right now, so let's go back to...
Right, yeah, no, we're going back to smut. So
I gotta
your
read...
story was, like, not really well written. It was like the person was trying to give off the impression that they were well read. They were like, in the morn, and she broke her fast, and
Right.
you know, such and such, like, let's use fancy flowery language.
But not
the
edit.
content was really terrible. Like, it wasn't actually progressive at all.
That was actually the 5th Sandor Sansa fanfic I went through to find the right length.
Oh my god. That's awful. I mean, it was still better than the one I read.
Isn't everyone just trying to find the right length?
What
Can-
did we tell
can
you
people
about?
hear you?
Yeah, no. Don't talk unless you have a mic.
Okay. I'm projecting.
Our mics are pointed away from you. I thought you were an audio engineer. Don't you know how like radiuses work?
Okay.
Radii, whatever.
I'll
Can you
remember-
stop distracting us? We're trying
I'll
to talk.
remember that next time you're producing my podcast and flute doozing around.
What's the next time I'm producing your podcast?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so
Nix, you need to put him in his place.
I don't have the leash. He didn't put it on. He's not even dressed. That's right, listeners. Scorch is naked.
What's on Scorch's shirt?
Is that's an Opeth shirt, I believe.
Opeth.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not even wearing a shirt.
Shouldn't have said anything. All right. Continue.
So the story that I just read, I'm sorry. I can't even call it a story with a straight face, honestly.
The writer was semi-illiterate or
non-native
undeveloped.
English speaker.
Could be English second language, could be a child, or could just be illiterate.
It was very reminiscent of the Half-Life 2. Oh, wait, no, hold on. Half-Life, Full Life Consequences fanfic. Because that's a really terrible fanfic.
I had some trouble following the storyline.
The storyline was pretty much that
So she
got kidnapped by the Yerks.
And she was using a broom. And she was sweeping up some sludge.
Well, no, she fell in the Yerk pool. Wow,
I don't know what a Yerk pole is.
No. So the Yerks are the like little slug creatures that squirm into your ear canal and then they like sink into your brain and they control you from your brain. So like anybody you know could be a Yerk. You can't tell that they're a Yerk because it's in their brain. Anyway, they're parasitic species. Okay. So the way that people are inducted into the Yerk society, I guess, is that the head is thrust into a breeding pool which houses many Yerk slugs swimming around in the water, and then one of them will worm its way into your ear canal.
This is in the Animorph?
Yeah. This is all
okay.
Animorph. This is canon Animorphs. Okay. But so basically she falls into a pool full of Yerks and miraculously none of them crawl into her ear canal, but because she gets pulled out of it, they think like, oh, you must have been inhabited by a Yerk. So they just tell her like, hey, go sweep that, because they're assuming that she's been inhabited by like a low level Yerk. And She wasn't actually.
I didn't
She
get
was
any of
still
that.
herself. Yeah, no, I know. It's very niche, I guess. 90s kids forever. 90s nerd kids. I don't know. That was all I bought at book fairs was Animorphs books. For sure. All right. Whatever. Both of those stories sucked dick, and not in the good way. So
Okay, these ones will be better.
Yeah, let's move on to our second stories, and fingers crossed those will have some smut.
Okay. Well, my second story is from the Elder Scrolls universe. It's about the Dragonborn, Skyrim, some Daedric lore. It's called Fill Me Up Knowledge Daddy.
Brilliant.
Do you think to escape me, Marak? You can hide nothing from me here, no matter. I have found a new Dragonborn to serve me. A cloaked figure rose from the dark pool in the center of the arena where, just moments ago, Fralia had fought herself to near exhaustion against a once great and powerful Dragonborn. May she be rewarded for her service, as I am, Marak gasped his last before
Are you
his
saying
very...
Morag is in Morag Ball?
No, it's Marak. M-I-R-A-A-K.
Mirak.
Oh,
Mirak.
okay, yeah.
Mirak grasped his last before his very skin was disintegrated and his remains were tossed upon the ground.
Hold on, time out. Grasped? It says grasped.
Gasped.
Okay.
Sorry. That was me.
Okay, here we go.
Gasped his last before his very skin was disintegrated and his remains were tossed upon the ground. He has served his purpose. It was Fralia's time. Oh, that's because I have my glasses on. Everything looks funny. It was Fralia's time now to serve the Prince of Forbidden Knowledge. Hermaeus Mora approached her, extending a hand to touch her face, holding her chin and forcing her gaze towards his eyes. She knew this was not a touch of intimacy, but of ownership. He was her master now. She had vowed to serve him even after death. This, however, did not prevent her blushing and feeling a flutter in her lower abdomen.
Whoa.
Mirak harbored fantasies of rebellion against me, learning from his example. Serve me faithfully, and you will continue to be richly rewarded, in italics. I am ready for my reward, master, Fralia said, eagerly awaiting whatever final forbidden knowledge she was to receive for her defeat of Mirak. Are you now? The Dark Prince chuckled in that deep, almost seductive voice. Fralia gasped as she saw several tentacles emerge from beneath Herma Mora's cloak. There seemed to be a hunger to them as they slithered across her skin, creeping up her legs and underneath her armor. I will give you a reward, my child. Fralia squirmed and let out another soft gasp as the tentacles lifted her off her feet and held her closer to the immortal being. But I can assure you, you are not as ready for it as you may think. A dark green glow began to shine from beneath them. Fralia braced herself in anticipation of pain, and an immense wash of information flooded her, expected to feel insanity breaking through at the reception of such knowledge. She was so very mistaken. Pain is not what she received. She gasped sharply and then released a trembling breath as two tentacles beneath her armor gripped her breasts, and another one pushing its slimy girth into her soft womanhood.
Girl, slow down. It's okay. This is our podcast. There's no time limit. You can really take a moment to savor the tentacle porn.
I'll go back and read it again. She was so very mistaken. Pain is not what she received. She gasped sharply and then released a trembling breath as two tentacles beneath her armor gripped her breasts.
Is this mind break? Is that the tag for this?
Another one pushing its slimy girth into her soft womanhood.
Ooh.
Her groin tightened at the pleasure of the smooth, pulsating appendage that was sliding rhythmically in and out of her.
So they're not tentacles with suction cups on them. They're just smooth tentacles. The people want to know. Come on.
The Daedric prince just watched her face in sickening delight as he filled her body with himself, slowly pushing another tentacle into her, stretching her to the point of ecstasy.
How many tentacles is that now?
That's 4.
4.
Because he's got one on each breast, and
Lucky
then
girl.
Yep. Fralia panted with increasing intensity as she tilted her head back, her vision growing hazy at the insertion of another of her master's tentacles. That's 5 now.
That's 5. Well, no, hold on.
Sorry.
Only 3 have been inserted,
and
because
then
the other 2.
Okay. He's got
So
a
we're
lot of
talking about
tentacles.
insertion is 3 here.
She reached out a shaky, uncertain hand and grasped at the front of his robe. Once she was able to find purchase, she pulled him closer to her and looked into his eyes with desperation. A sadistic smile spread across his lips as he leaned in to whisper in her ear, "Are you ready for my forbidden knowledge?" He breathed. She shuddered. The combination of his seductive voice and his tentacles running over just the right spot, rendering slow to respond. "Yes, ha. Yes, master, please."
It's definitely mind break.
What's mind break? All right, we'll talk
Google
after.
it later.
We'll talk. The glow of his eyes brightened, and Fralia began to feel what she was expecting before. The unknowable flooded into her as her master penetrated her with his knowings, as well as his physical body. The rush of power and the intensified squirming of the appendages inside her filled her with such pleasure, she forced close the distance between them, pushing her lips against his to keep from screaming. She was kissing Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric prince of forbidden knowledge.
Does he even have lips? I mean, I'm
Wait,
just saying.
Is this the blob with the tentacles?
Yes. I'm just saying, like, honestly. Okay.
The Daedric prince of forbidden knowledge and being ravaged by him, mind and body. The intimacy seemed to surprise him, as there was a stutter in the movement of his tentacles before he continued with more urgency. Fralia's body reached climax as her mind finally began to understand the shape of what was being taught. In this encounter, she had learned more about herself. She now found that she was in control of her own abilities in a more thorough way than before. She had been given the power to bend other to her will, but now that she had that power over her own body. She was grateful, but now also covered in a moist substance left over from her ravaging.
Oh no. A moist substance.
She
Whatever
found that
could
she had been
be?
laid down, her legs spread in a rather vulnerable position, but the Daedra was gone. A pedestal had risen from the black pool holding a rather large book that seemed to be made out of gross flesh. This was her way out. She readjusted her clothing before returning to the mortal world to adventure across Skyrim once more.
Well, I just got tentacle raped by a Daedric god, but whatevs, guys. Like, I got this cool book, and I'm just gonna readjust my armor. It's fine. Like,
Sick perks I just got.
dude, if it was only +1, I don't know.
+6 to anal gapage.
Oh.
+6, -6.
Wait, so what was the final tentacle count?
I think it was 5. No. I think it was 4. 5 including the breasticles. Breast tentacles. I don't know.
Breasticle. All right, so what were you saying? It sounds like what? Mind?
Mind break.
What's mind break?
I don't know. It's like where the pleasure is too much, and it's just like it's like mind control, and they just
Send them
become.
into such an ecstasy that like they just
Their
are
mind breaks.
enslaved to you,
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Is
Yeah.
that a like?
It's a hentai thing.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know. Inquiring minds want to know. Excuse me, who the fuck did you just
That
say?
was intentional because
I
you were-
think
What did he
Scorch
say?
just called me Ophelia.
Yeah, because you were giggling like she does.
I don't snort.
That's true. That's me. I do that sometimes.
No, you said it's like Ophelia's like penis.
Yeah, but this is mind break.
This is 5 tentacles.
Only 5. What a weak mind. I can't. So, what did you think about the writing style?
It was much better than the other 2. Decent.
Yeah, decent.
Honestly,
It was alright.
pretty decent.
I mean, I was a little confused by the description.
I like the line, "Are you ready for my forbidden knowledge?"
Yeah, that sounded pretty kinky. I was into it. Like, definitely 10 out of 10. Ready for some forbidden knowledge.
Yeah, this was smutty, decently written, disgusting. Perfect for you.
Yeah, all of the things that I like. Although, like, really, we should strive for superbly written, but, you know, I might as well just write my own stuff at that point.
If we want superbly written, don't look on fanfiction.net. Also,
That's not true.
I saw
There
your
are some
stuff. I
hidden
saw your
gems.
fanfictions
Yeah,
earlier.
but when I was like 13.
All right, well, show me some better ones.
Okay, fine. I will. I'll copy paste them. It'll be worth it. So, what was your overall thought about that?
Fill me up. Wait, what was it called? Fill me up, Tentacle Daddy.
Fill me up. No,
Hold on.
knowledge.
Knowledge Daddy. Okay. I would say it was one of the best ones I've read so far.
Well,
was
that's
disturbing.
just because you haven't heard High Above the Bell Tower.
All right, you ready?
Yet. No,
I'm not
no,
ready.
We need to chit chat a little bit more about
Okay.
yours. I thought it was very creative using Hermia Mora for a sex fanfic, I guess.
Right, I feel like there's more corporeal
yeah, definitely.
Daedra to use, or just any character that actually is humanoid.
Is she? No, hold on. Was she supposed to be the Dragonborn?
Yeah, she's
She's
Fralia's the
taking
Dragonborn.
over
So she
for,
kills
the previous.
yeah, she kills
Dragonborn.
Murak, who I think is like a wizard.
Yeah,
some
yeah,
sort.
Yeah.
Scorch. Is Murak a wizard? What is he?
Mirac
I can't
was the
remember.
Original Dragonborn.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They did the last DLC for Skyrim was called Dragonborn. And
Right.
Yeah, he was the main.
Okay, I
main
played some
character.
of that, but I don't remember.
that's the one where they honey dicked you into thinking you could ride the dragons around.
Yeah,
when you
but
got
they
on them, all
weren't,
they did
yeah.
was just fly in a circle
Oh.
around the battlefield.
And
You're
you could like
"Fuck!"
yeah, and you could like shoot melee shit.
You
I mean
totally
range shit,
thought,
but
like, made it seem like you were just gonna be a dragon rider, like fucking.
That would be awesome.
They
There's
made
mods
it
for
think. They made you think that it would be like when you got cold weather flying in World of Warcraft,
Yeah.
Oh,
but it wasn't like that at all.
that would have been much.
It was like it was
was
basically
not
as
like
it was basically like when you used to take a griffin from Stormhold
I
to like
had bats.
sorry. Anyway, let's move on.
Horde.
You're a horde, Scorch.
Scorch. I played undead.
Of course you did.
and
You
Undead
probably liked her
warlock.
dance because she did the goth dance.
Yeah.
The undead looks stupid.
That's like okay. The undead, female undead, and female night elf had like basically the same dance. Just saying.
I had a night elf druid too.
Of course you did. Of course you did. I had a night elf priest. Okay, that was my first character. And
I-
she sucked, and I hated her.
I hated every time it would turn into a furry.
Oh, when you did bear form.
Yeah, I didn't like changing into
That was the
animals.
best for
I know that was the
tanking.
whole point of druid, but
Yeah, it was because you could be a tank. You
Tanking.
could be range DPS. You could be like melee DPS. Like that was the whole. That was the
I like
fucking
healing.
point of like shifting. No, you wouldn't. Why would you heal as a druid?
I had no idea what I was doing.
Fair
I
enough.
played for 10 years. Still don't know.
and you had no idea what you were doing,
no, I really didn't.
dude. It's girls like you that give girls like me a bad name.
I
on
had
WoW.
fun. That's what
Just
matters.
saying.
I just spent hours and hours doing archaeology.
You didn't even dance naked like in front of the auction house to get free shit.
Oh, maybe I'll try that.
That's the best part of being a female WoW player.
Yeah,
Even males
Or
make
pretending to be a
female.
female
Yes,
player.
exactly. Even males make female WoW players and just be like, like slash flirt,
But
like
You're
slash.
not like the other guys.
Oh my god.
that's how I got away with being unskilled at fighting.
Oh my god, I can't. Okay, let's move on to my next fan
High
fiction.
above in the bell tower?
It's called High Above the Bell Tower.
High above the bell tower.
Yes. And there is a little disclaimer,
Okay.
and it says, "Oh wait, hold on. Let me introduce. High Above the Bell Tower is a Hunchback of Notre Dame fan fiction that I found. So I hope you guys enjoy it to the max." The disclaimer says, I am remedying the fact that there is no Esmeralda x Quasimodo smut on fanfiction. You're welcome to the few that will appreciate this. This may be complete brain bleach for many, and I understand completely. If that's the case, save yourselves the trouble and avoid this at all costs. Which to me is a big green light. So, here we go. Come with me. Esmeralda's bright green eyes bore into Quasimodo. He felt guilty. Oh, how he wanted to go. But Master Frollo, he would be furious. Cautiously, he declined her offer. There was so much to do. The evening mass, the cloisters, the vespers, and the gypsy rendered him silent. Her soft lips were pressed against his. His eyes were wide with both fear and delight. Was this what he always saw from above? Heaven's light? He stared at her, bewildered. Esmeralda pulled away slightly, half-lidded. Instead of coaxing him to leave, she coaxed herself to stay. She leaned in again, this time kissing the bell ringer much more gently, guiding his inexperienced lips and holding his face in her tender hands. Quasimodo pulled away, breathless. I think I heard something. The sound of guards doing their rounds started coming in their direction. Without hesitating, he began to hoist her back up to the bell towers. His heart was beating fast. He felt a rush foreign to him as he had Esmeralda cling to his neck softly. Placing her back up to the balcony, a lascivious smile became present on Esmeralda's face as she quickly grabbed Quasi's arm, leading him back inside the loft. Esmeralda stood in front of his makeshift bed, suddenly pushing him against the pillows. Whoa! He looked up to see her above him. Her eyes looked through him hungrily. He didn't know what was happening, but he kinda liked it. I'm reading as much into the punctuation as I can, okay. I promise. A smile crossed his features as she leaned in once more, kissing his virgin lips. I just want to interject and say that they're not virgin lips, and she literally just kissed him already. Just saying. His callowness began to arouse the sultry woman as she began running her hand through his shock of red hair, slowly tugging at his tunic. Quasimodo wanted to stop it, but the sensations felt so good, in italics. He suddenly felt the blood rush to his face and other places. His eyes looked like saucers as he felt his members swell. This time he gently pushed her back, forcing Esmeralda into a kneeling position with a look of confusion on her flushed face. Quasi, what's wrong? You don't like it? He looked pained. No, I do. This is sinful. I don't think we should, he gulped nervously, continue. Esmeralda scowled, sighing heavily. But how can this be sin? Showing affection is sin? Why would the church prevent this? She leaned in again, her eyes aching for him. Quasimodo reddened at the look of absolute desire. He was confused as well. It was wrong, yet it felt so right. He looked at the hurt look on Esmeralda's face. She mentioned couples. Are you and I... Silently, she crept back forward. Wait, hold on, let me start over. Silently, she crept forward back to her spot, straddling him. I was hoping you wanted to... Suddenly, the bell ringer grabbed her and pulled her in, collapsing amongst the pillows once more and getting lost in her lips. She began to untie her hip scarf, tossing it aside. Esmeralda brushed against his bulge, trying to break through his tights, begging to be caressed. Quasimodo automatically bucked, grabbing the gypsy's supple hips. He had never experienced anything like this. Every light touch, every stroke sent his mind reeling. Never in his life had he experienced such intimate caresses. The concept was foreign to the lonely bell ringer. His mouth moved with her, matching her pace as he felt her tongue envelop his. I didn't know tongues could do that.
Wait, but he's like all deformed, so maybe.
She lightly traced the tip, only then to suck on it slowly, foreshadowing what was to come.
Is she sucking on his tongue?
Yes.
Okay.
She pulled away for a moment to look at his expression of complete devotion and desire for her. If this was sin, so be it. Nothing could stop something so exhilarating. Nothing! Quasimodo suddenly felt the gypsy begin to run her tan hand along his inner thigh. His breath became caught in his throat, and a loud moan escaped his lips when she squeezed his member brazenly. He jolted, falling deeper amongst the pillows. Esmeralda took the time to watch him writhe and mewl underneath as she lightly caressed his engorged manhood and trapped beneath his hosiery. He began to thrust his hips desperately as she stroked her fingers over his shaft. Wordlessly, Esmeralda stopped and began removing his tunic. He let her do so, eagerly. How do you let somebody do something eagerly? Are you like, yeah, all right, let's do it. Remove my tunic. The look on his face was of absolute fright and lust for her. He almost felt undeserving of such beauty, feeling ashamed as she wordlessly removed her blouse, revealing her bountiful bosoms. This person's super into alliteration for a hot minute. His face flushed a bright crimson as he instinctively wanted to look away. Esmeralda was not having it. She placed a finger beneath his chin to look back at her. She leaned forward and placed her breast against his mouth, where he shut his eyes and grabbed her tightly against him as he licked them hastily. All right, that's not really very sexy. Just saying. Esmeralda tossed her raven hair. No! Stop! Oh my god!
There
no!
might be a trademark or copyright issue on showing this to the public.
No,
but
we have to. She's showing me a picture of Quasimodo as I'm reading. You can't see it, but it's a picture of fucking Quasimodo, and he is awful looking. Oh my god. Where was I? He was licking her breasts hastily.
Just keep this in mind.
All right.
I'm just disappointed there's no helping.
Esmeralda tossed her raven hair back at the sensation, encouraging him to be rougher. Sorry. She hissed in pleasure as he sucked them both fervently. So now he's gone from hasty to fervent. The bell ringer was lost in a euphoric state as he ravished her heaving breasts. Esmeralda Stop it!
Look at this one,
Oh
and then
my
I'm done.
Ugh. All right, hold on. That is not a bountiful bosom. I'm just going to say it.
It's pretty bountiful.
Those are like B cups at best.
What do you think, Score? No, that's a
Yes.
triple D right there. Look,
Fuck you.
it's all
no.
hidden under the white. Scorch. What size?
Those? It's like some C's, maybe.
C's? No.
Yeah. B's or C's?
It's not that big.
Not that big.
Your judgment is
I mean,
skewed.
Still smash.
Excuse
Still
you.
smash, but no.
Stop acting like mine are like huge black woman breasts with like you have to wear the fucking bra as a hat or some shit. Anyway, where was I? He was sucking her breasts fervently, I believe. Right, the bell ringer was lost in a euphoric state as he ravished her heaving breasts. Esmeralda squealed in delight as he grew audacious enough to flip her beneath him, holding her wrists hostage above her head in his bear-like grip. There was a carnal smile etched onto his crooked mouth as he licked at her pert nipples once more, teasing her as he circled them gently. She uncaged the repressed beast within. He toyed with them until he was finally unable to control himself and squeezed her large breasts in his hands, burying his face inside his newfound sanctuary. Esmeralda took advantage of this moment to slip a hand into his stockings and stroke his hardened member. A muffled scream in sheer ecstasy escaped Quasimodo's lips, and he froze, allowing her to take control anxiously. This person uses way too many adverbs and, like, not in a good way. Just saying. Esmeralda took the opportunity and spun him over again. Whatever that means. I guess that means she got on top again. She bit his lower lip and dragged her tongue down to his waist. Okay. Sorry, I was just trying to envision that.
He's very deformed. Things are done differently.
The sensation was incredible. Quasimodo adjusted himself when she grabbed his hosen and shimmied them down, freeing his restless phallus. Bare before her, he suddenly felt self-conscious, wanting to cover himself as she kept staring at his erect member. Probably because he has like a weird deformed penis. The feeling quickly escaped in the form of a ragged breath when she dragged her nails softly against his inner thighs, making him shudder. Carefully, she lowered her head and searched for his gaze, giving him a promiscuous smile. Her breath felt warm against his throbbing manhood as he eagerly awaited whatever she had planned. Quasimodo was at her mercy. Quasimodo, Esmeralda murmured, placing her heavenly lips against his hardened manhood. Quasimodo's breath got caught on his throat as a choked moan escaped him. Please do not show me any more Quasimodo pictures.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm putting it away.
Esmeralda chuckled below, going slowly as she watched him writhe in delight. She sucked deliberately, giving him the satisfaction of watching her move her delicious mouth over him, humming and moaning in pleasure. Quasimodo watched on as she swirled her tongue around his tip, making him see stars. The minx would pick up the pace every so often, just to see his face contort into an O. Isn't his face already contorted?
Yeah.
Maybe it's more of like contorting his face into an S. The sensations were becoming too much for Quasimodo to bear. B-A-R-E. Oh, God, Esmeralda. Stopping her sinful suction. The gypsy practically tore off her skirt before grabbing his large hand and guiding him to her wet folds.
His lumpy, large.
She moaned in rapture, for your information, calling his name as he explored her.
Quasimodo.
Quasimodo. Sorry. His large fingertip found a bud between her soft nether lips, and he curiously began to stroke it. Esmeralda heaved and grabbed onto his chest as she began to move her hips with the movement of his sinful fingers. I'd heave too, honestly.
I'm heaving right now.
Also, the word movement was used twice in that sentence, and that bothers me. He was quick at figuring out just how she liked it as he began moving it in a circular motion, causing her to breathe rapidly. Seeing Esmeralda get so worked up caused him to go faster. Quasimodo relentlessly swirled his thick finger over her nub as he watched her face contort in ultimate pleasure. She called his name as he continued building up her orgasm. The gypsy couldn't take it anymore as she swung her head back, and thrusted her hips toward him, satisfied. Her walls contracted forcefully, and she wanted more, in italics. Esmeralda attacked his lips as she grabbed his turgid manhood. A+ for fucking thesaurus.com. And hoisted herself over it. She thrusted her body over him for the first time. That's not true. She just thrusted herself over him. I remember reading it. Causing him to scream her name. She had him! Exclamation point. Esmeralda began to gyrate on top of the love-drunk bell ringer, causing him to moan and mewl in pleasure. He grabbed onto her hips as he held on for his life, as she rapidly bounced atop his stiffened member. Quasimodo rolled his eyes back in ecstasy. More, more, more. God. Please.
It sounds accurate for Quasimodo.
Look at it. Literally says that.
God. Please, Esmeralda.
He wailed as his body flushed crimson in sexual fervor. Quasimodo's merciful gaze turned absolutely lascivious as he flipped the buxom beauty beneath him, plowing her roughly. His muscles flexed against the intense sensations, and his eyes feasted on her bouncing breasts beneath. This person. I can't with this person's writing style. Her slick walls tightened around him, causing him to choke out her name. The gypsy below grabbed onto his neck for dear life. Her husky voice sang to him, "Sanctuary, sanctuary, sanctuary," and a wanton smile spread over his face as he felt as though he was going to explode. His thrusts became frantic as he pounded her relentlessly, letting go of all his inhibitions. Finally, he felt a rush go as to his throbbing manhood, and he screamed her name, releasing inside of her. He tossed his mop of fiery red hair back, bucking his hips until he finally collapsed over her, exhausted. The gypsy lightly laughed in satisfaction, watching him suddenly get onto his forearms as he stared at her both in incredulity and absolute bliss. He began to remove himself, afraid he'd crush her beneath him, until she lightly pulled him back down, wrapping her arms around his neck. Esmeralda still tried to regain her breathing. "That... you... incredible..." She held her hand to her forehead as it kept reeling from the pleasure waves that still shook her to the core. The bell ringer still couldn't see straight, and he reluctantly rolled over, only to suddenly feel her cuddle against his massive bicep. Esmeralda placed a skillful yet delicate tan hand on his cheek, contrasting against his pale complexion. She leaned in slowly, placing a tender kiss on his lips. He smiled sheepishly, pulling her in for an embrace with one arm and gracefully covering themselves with a quilt with the other. I swear that's what it says. Quasi lightly chuckled at the wild hair framing Esmeralda's beautiful face and ever so carefully ran a hand through it. "I love you, Esmeralda." The gypsy's emerald eyes were aglow as she traced a finger over his soft lips. "And I love you, Quasimodo." There's more?
How long is this?
Okay, hold on. Over by the balcony, 3 gargoyles sat facing the aerial view of Paris with wide eyes and mortified looks on their faces. Laverne clutched her heart, wishing for the first time that a flock of pigeons would fly her away from the ungodly screams she had heard for the past 30 minutes. Victor sat motionless, while Hugo decided now was the best time to say what was on his mind. Wow, I didn't know he had it in him. Laverne and Victor smacked Hugo upside that head, causing him to clutch it in agony. What? I'm just saying, we got ourselves a real Casanova. I mean, did you hear her? Hugo, will you please stop? Please. I'm trying my hardest to forget. Victor gave Hugo a pained look. Oh, right. But serious, though, where did he learn? Hugo! Both Laverne and Victor screamed. Quasimodo and Esmeralda had just begun to doze off when they heard a yell. Quasimodo was slightly confused until realization struck him like a spiked flail. Oh my God. Esmeralda rubbed Quasi's chest soothingly. What's wrong? The bell ringer's frightened look in his eyes and skittish nature returned momentarily before he was rendered silent by her healing kiss. Nothing. Good night, he melted. Esmeralda cocked an eyebrow curiously before dismissing whatever it was. She resumed her spot snuggled up next to him, where they both fell asleep in each other's embrace. The end.
Well, that was sufficiently disturbing.
That was a wild ride, honestly.
For Esmeralda.
I mean, which part? The part where the writing was horrible? Like, the person clearly was just on thesaurus.com, like, let me look up a fucking synonym
At
for
least
this
they
word.
tried.
Dude, okay, I'm sorry. If you are using, hold on, let me find it. Okay, first of all, can I just say that the erratic alliteration was really unsettling. It was like, hey, alliteration for 2 words here and 2 words there, and like, haha, I'm so clever, but not really. Honey, sit down. Let me see. There was a particular word that they used several times that's like not a word. Thrusted? It was like thrusted. They were using thrusted in conjunction with like lascivious. And you clearly would never have thought of the word lascivious on your own.
And didn't she use it twice?
Twice in the same fucking 2,000 word story. Like, that is a word. That right there is a silver dollar word. And if you don't know what a silver dollar is, you're too young. Go, just leave. Don't watch this podcast. But like, you know what I mean? It's just one of those words where you show it off, you show that you know what it means, you use an ascendance, you're like, ah, yes, lasciviously, or whatever. And then you move on and you pick another word that means relatively the same thing because English is like that. But
Concupiscence. How do you say that one?
concupiscence.
Concupiscence.
Yes. Well, that's a different word, though. That's a different part of speech.
Yes, it's a different part of speech.
Right.
Similar idea.
Yeah. It is a very similar idea. But the point is that I don't believe this person is as well educated as they clearly want other people to think they are. You know, like the writing just wasn't good. It was like he felt guilty, she felt lusty. Like, this is what they felt. They felt these things. Da 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 da. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, let me show you how the characters are feeling in this moment. It was like, I'm gonna tell you how the character feels.
Nix, do you really expect better from smutty Esmeralda Quasimodo?
I could write better.
But why would you? Why would
wouldn't.
someone who can write that? You're not going to find.
To challenge themselves.
Yeah, it could be a challenge, a literary challenge. I would rise to
J.K.
the
Rowling
occasion.
to fucking great Harry Potter. That's great. I want to see Esmeralda and Quasimodo. Damn.
All right, Nix, for next week.
Get a shock collar.
Oh, yeah, get it.
Oh, I found shock nipple clamps. We can do that.
All right, let's
I don't
do
wanna
it.
Shock collar. That's like a no disrespect podcast thing.
Right.
Can't be fucking
We can't
swag
rip
jacket.
off someone else's podcast. We're gonna get shock nipple clamps instead of a shock collar.
Cool.
Don't worry, we'll keep it on the low voltage. He'll be
dude,
fine.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. I like the way you like to be.
I
What?
was saying, Nix, you write one.
Okay.
If you're such a good writer.
I'll fucking write something,
All right.
and you could read it. And then since I know you're going to be the one reading it, I'm going to put in all sorts of lascivious things. Because you were reading one of my friggin' college fanfics from earlier, and you were like, ew, he like pushed her onto her knees and like shoved his penis into her mouth.
I still thought that was
goodness.
a 14-year-old story. I didn't realize it was a college
like 17,
story.
18-year-old story. I evolved in my methodology. Why are you... Oh, okay. Well, so, do you think that our listeners have enjoyed our extravaganza, darling?
Well, they should tell us.
Yeah, they totally fucking should.
Rate and review on iTunes.
Rate and review on iTunes. Leave us a comment on Facebook. Actually, I think now would be probably a really good time to do our plugs. So, below us are our individual Instagram tags. You can also find us on Facebook at Between the Covers Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at Between the Covers Podcast.
I think.
You
looked at me like you were wondering. I don't know.
I'm including you in
I
the
don't know what
thing.
they are.
The plugs. We're also on Twitter at between_covers. You can email us at betweenthecoverspodcast@gmail.com with questions, comments, concerns. Ophelia would love to give you guys relationship advice, I guess. So go ahead and do that. Don't forget to watch or check out at least the Bastard Sermon podcast. They're really cool dudes. And before we totally get off track here, we'd like to introduce our book for next week. It's called Hot and Badgered. It's part of the Honey Badger
Who's
Chronicles.
it by? Can you read it?
It's by Shelley Lawrenson. Sorry, it's the whiskey. Tullamore Dew. Also, if you're gonna drink alcohol, you should totally drink Havoc mead because they're fucking cool and they're mead and everyone loves mead. So, yeah, I think that can pretty much wrap it for the night. Thanks for sticking around during our extravaganza trilogy, and next week we'll be sure to entertain you with more werebear shifter romance novels.
And keep your eyes open. I'm working on some merch, so that might be available soon.
Merch. Definitely buy our merch whenever it comes out. And stuff and things. Okay, good night, you guys. Thank you.
Good night.
We're drowning in the sea of blood. We have the gift of eternal existence. Tried to catch you.